Hello, and welcome to another episode of Cooking with Unity. I'm your host, Maximilian Moreau, and with me is my tech, Philip Wilson.
Howdy ho.
So, today we're going to continue on our Star Fox project, but first I wanted to share a couple projects from the Ludum Dare from week before last now, and also a project that's based on our current project here. So first off, SomeNetworkGuy, as he goes by his online name, created this game called Abyss. The theme for Ludum Dare this year was minimalism, which kind of was pretty open range on what people could do. This game is pretty fun. It's a little obstacle escape game. Hold on, press the restart. And you control a ball as it falls through this cylinder, and you can move around. And the goal is to not hit the blue things and to hit the yellow things. And you get points for hitting the yellow things, and you also get points for collecting the red things that come out of them. I don't know why I'm describing them as things. They're cubes, but it doesn't matter. So they give you points, but you can also drag them around you, and they'll destroy the blue bars.
I think that's pretty cool.
And that gives you points. Yeah, it's actually a pretty fun little game. Music's a little bit repetitive, but you gotta remember, guys, that the Ludum Dare entries, all of the stuff is composed during the competition, so it's sometimes very difficult to get music into a game in any capacity. You're not even technically allowed to use third-party music stuff on the two-day competition at the very least. You have to make it all yourself. So despite the fact that it's a repetitive loop, it still represents more work that this person put into the project. So
I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah, have you played this yet? Do you want to get on the keyboard here? Okay. And so yeah, that's Abyss by SomeNetworkGuy. And we also have one here by ChrisGaudino, and this one is Bucket. And this is a neat little game. I'm gonna go ahead and play it on medium. This is a game where it's kind of reminiscent of Choplifter because you're controlling a plane, but you have this little water bucket at the end of your rope, and you have to take it and drag it into the water here, and you have to be kind of careful. The controls are a little bit touchy, but I found them to be what I'd expect for this type of kind of pseudo-simulation game.
A helicopter has pretty touchy controls as it is.
Exactly.
So.
And it's certainly very functional. The bucket has physics, so you have to kind of work with that. You just fill it up, and you press and hold space to distribute the water on the fire. And then you try and get rid of all the fire before it burns down the house on the left there. I haven't specifically watched the fire spread. I assume that it spreads, but it goes at a pretty slow pace on the easy and medium difficulties at least. And it seems like if you... Oh, no! I made it!
Oh my goodness.
Touchdown!
Oh my goodness.
That was kind to have the collision be lenient on the bars at the bottom. Like, if you hit the main part of your craft in there, that definitely doesn't work.
You can hit your helicopter.
Oh, they definitely spread. Look! Oh, no! Yeah, that's the other thing the bucket can do. You can snag yourself. But yeah, it's
awesome.
another great little game.
That's pretty neat.
So yeah, that's Chris Gaudino, and I'm sorry, or Gaudino. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I'm terrible with names, so you can correct. I'll correct myself on the next episode if you feel offended or in any way. And the third one is by History Maker 118. Now this one's not a Ludum Dare entry. This is actually, you'll see this as kind of familiar. History Maker, she went ahead and made this kind of. Took what we did on Monday and just ran with it. She initially was the one who requested requested some help on setting up a Star Fox game, which gave me the inspiration for this episode in the first place. And okay, so that's my control key for firing problem. Control is how I switch between spaces. So if I press left and right and control at the same time, it does that. But yeah, this is totally awesome. This is you can tell that this is Phil's ship over there.
Yeah, I was very, very happy to see that.
Yeah. It was funny is I actually wasn't initially sure how Phil entirely would feel about his ship being used, but he was actually super excited to see it being used.
Yeah, if you want to use it, go for it.
So
I'm more than happy with you using the stuff that I make.
So yeah, so it's basically she's added here a randomly generated level system here, and the speed constantly goes up, and so there's a whole game involved here, and there's no visible score yet, but obviously there's elements to allow for that. Also, there's a really cool little reflection effect that they have that she added for the sides here, which is just an extra ship in the reflection. It's a really great little technique for it. I keep slipping through there.
Yeah, if you ever want to do a reflection, just render the object twice.
Yeah. That's honestly that's how most reflections in games are done. Obviously, refraction effects such as screen space refraction effects, such as water effects and stuff, are done using GPU shaders typically these days.
Look at it go! My little ship has never gone so fast.
But yeah, so that's where they did that, and I just think it's really cool that people could just kind of take things and run with it. I'd love to see more of this happen on the show, where not to quote Star Wars or anything, but where people kind of unlearn what they've learned on the show and kind of try and extend it as best they can. And this is really, really good stuff.
Show us what you've done from the show too. Like, that would just be great. I
mean, please. Anyone who's done
old
stuff,
projects, new projects, it doesn't matter. If you've done something that's based on this, it would be really, really cool to see it.
Yep. So thank you very much, History Maker 118, for working on this, and she actually offered to show the project on how she did the procedural generation of the level. We're actually going to cover that on this episode, and then we'll do a comparison at a later time on the differences between the techniques that we ended up doing.
Holy moly! Look at that thing go.
I'm getting worked here. Luckily, I appear to have unlimited health. So that's what we're going to start with for today. So. Last episode, here's where we actually left off on the show. Not as cool as History Maker 118's, obviously. But this one is a little game where you can move around, and we have a movement at the bottom, and you can shoot, and most everything's working that we've implemented here. But there's no enemies, there's nothing interesting to do yet. We don't really have a level. The level ends, as you can see. So we're going to today work on kind of a procedural level, tube level generation like you saw in History Maker's thing. And if we have more time after that, we will touch on a few things. One person has already, of course, asked if we're going to have barrel rolls. Yes, of course we're going to have barrel rolls. So
yeah, I don't know how you could make a Star Fox game
without barrel rolls. We may touch barrel rolls today, or at least get some of the basic controls in for that. Also, I want to actually go over a little bit on the controller side. It's really not any different than what we've already been doing. As a matter of fact, most of what we've already been doing will already work on a controller if you plug it in. Unfortunately, I did not bring my controller for testing today, so we're not going to be focusing too long on the controller aspect of things. But we will touch on that in the next episode, I'm pretty sure. So let's get started.
Indeed.
So what we've got going on is we've got a ship, we've got a plane, and not a whole lot else. And we have an object that represents the screen plane for the ship that we move through the scene. The camera's attached to, as well as, so basically this camera, the ship, and the reticles follow through the world. So if we actually hit play on here and go back to our scene view, you can see, if I can catch up to it, let's see if I can watch it pass by. There it goes. Went by. That was really exciting. So we're moving it through the scene. We could also just as easily move the scene through the camera, which might be more appropriate for auto generation. But I'm just going to take a look at it first. So let's see what we got here. So one of the things we could do is, so we have one problem here. We will eventually run out of space on the ground, and there's a couple ways we can fix that. One of the easiest is to change the concept of, instead of just moving along the ground, we actually can move the ground itself if the textures don't move with it. We've done a technique similar to this before in the side-scrolling platformer game, to make it so that we only had to have a short stretch of land that just barely covered the screen, and then we would just move the texture to make it look like, give the illusion of movement in the scene. The actual board itself would move with us, but since the texture didn't, it looked like we were progressing. So let's actually just show what it looks like first if we just attach the plane here to our gameplay plane. So now the plane will move with us. If you see now it looks like we're standing completely still. If we go into the scene though, you'll see that the whole system is now moving. And so that doesn't help us too much because it looks like we're not doing anything, and now it seems like we're just going to confuse ourselves because we're moving through space and the ground is not actually changing in any significant way. So let's change the way this thing is textured. I'm going to go into the ground texture material. I'm going to duplicate it, and we're going to call this ground texture world space. And I think we can just do this with one of the built-in shaders. Let's see. GUI mobile. Maybe we can't. Diffuse, specular, cutout, legacy shaders. So reflective would probably work for this. The problem with reflective is it assumes a cube map. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna duplicate the ground texture here so that we can change the import settings independently. I'm going to call it ground texture cube map. We're going to change the settings here. Actually, wait, I think we can just do generate cube map and it'll generate separate anyway. So let's just click generate cube map. Let's just do full cube map and hit apply. Oh, yeah, I should have done it as a separate thing. Alright, let's not do this. Hold on. Let's do what we were doing before. I'm going to hit apply. Hopefully we'll... Okay, so it's back to normal. I'm going to duplicate it. Ground texture cube. Generate cube map. Full cube map. Hit apply. This basically saves you the trouble of having to put the same thing on all 4 cubes in a case where we don't really care about that. Now, hopefully this will just work. I haven't actually done it this way before, so let's actually see what happens. So we have what looks like a cube map there. Let's see what happens when we attach it to the ground. I have a feeling this is not going to look as good as I want it to look. So, so we're going to change this. We're going to set up a ground texture cube map, and we're going to hit play. Oh, wait, we didn't actually apply this to the ground. So let's do that now. Just going to drag it onto the ground. And yep, that definitely... That looks really cool, though.
It does look really cool.
Actually, I want to see what that looks like with the...
With it moving and everything?
Yeah, let's unparent this again. So we don't need the plane anymore in there. That's kind of cool. Alright, well, so that did not do what I was kind of hoping it was going to do, and I kind of figured it wasn't going to do that anyway. So, we're going to have to either write a shader to do this, or we're going to have to do what we did last time, which was write a little script to do it. So, I'm in a scripting mode right now, so we're going to do a script. What we're going to do is we're going to create a C# script called scroll texture. And all we're going to do is, in the update loop here, actually let's first, actually I didn't want to get rid of the start loop just yet, because we do need that. So, for the start, we're just going to grab our material. So that's going to be material mat. Actually, I'm going to call it public material mat, and actually I'm going to call this private because we don't actually want to set this separate of the system. So material mat dot texture. So main texture. Okay, actually that's not what we want. We want just a texture. Is this 2D or texture? So it's just texture. So I'm going to call this text, text, equals renderer dot material dot main texture. No, we want the material because the offset's in there. Okay, so I lied twice. Material. So mat equals renderer.material. And then in the update loop, we're going to public vector2 scroll speed equals vector2.1. So in the update loop, we are going to set mat dot texture offset plus equals scroll speed. I think that's it. I think that's the whole thing. So let's give it a shot. So we're going to attach this to our plane, and we're going to attach the plane again to the camera. And so if I'm going to disable the scroll texture for right now. We're going to hit play, and we're going to see that it just stays there. If I turn on the scroll texture, it should actually do something, and it's not doing anything, though the offset is changing. Oh, it's because the offset is yeah, so we want plus equals scroll speed times time dot delta time. Let's see if that works a little bit better. There we go. That works a little bit better. So we can see that it is now indeed scrolling the texture. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the cube map version. We're going to go back to the basic ground texture on here. So I'm just going to throw the ground texture plane on here. Even though that does look really cool, we'll have to play around with that more in the future. So we're going to hit play, and you'll see that it's scrolling. And it doesn't seem like it's scrolling in a particularly meaningful way with regards to what we're doing right now. So we need to fix that. So all we need to do is go into the scroll speed, and we're going to change the X scroll to 0, and the Y scroll we're going to make -1. And then if we hit play, it looks like we are now moving forward. So if we were to get rid of the plane, move it out here again, turn off scroll texture and move, you'll see that it scrolls at this really high rate. And that's just because our jet is set to go at the really high rate, or rather our gameplay plane is. So it's set to speed 50. So let's see if that matches up. So here's what it looks like right now. Get a good feel for that rhythm. Just kind of like a clicking in the corner there. Put it on the gameplay plane. We set the scroll speed to -50, and it should look exactly the same as it did before. And it totally doesn't, because this isn't checked, of course. So hit play, and there we go. It looks very similar to what we had before. So that's good. That means that it's working. It does seem like it has a little bit of a weird chop to it. Huh. Wonder why that is. Here, let's see how it looks when we look at it going by. So it should look relatively like these things. Okay, so you can see that there's a chop. We really don't want it to chop around like that. Wonder why that is. We'd really optimally want this to look just like the object is standing still. Let's go ahead and try a smaller value for both of these. Let's switch this to 20 and then switch the actual gameplay plane to move at 20 and see if that does any better with regards to that. That looks less like there's problems, but let's actually look at it. So now it looks like it's going backwards. Wonder why that is. So we had this working just perfectly on the other one here. So this should look like it's standing still, even though it's moving right now. I think. Oughta. but it definitely doesn't.
Should look like it's moving.
Yeah. Oh, I know why. Okay, so it's the plane problem again. So what this represents is the texture offset. If you have an offset of 1, part of the reason that we didn't see a movement the first time is because we had set it to 1, which is actually a really bad value for it to start at. At 1, if you move a total of 1, it will look like it's in the same place it started. At 0 is equal to 1, at 1 is equal to 2, and at 2 is equal to 3. It's just the values in between those that actually matters for the scrolling. So what's happening here is this texture, because of the way the UVs are set up on the plane, if I set this texture to repeat, here, let's actually just do it as with no repeating real quick. So we're going to go onto our plane here, and we're going to make it so that there is no tiling, just one tile, 1 and 1. So if we count this out, you'll see that this represents the whole of our texture. Like our texture has 4 slots, 4 by 4, so you can see 4, 4, 4, 4. This is our 4 by 4 texture. Now, this represents more than the number of units that you expect. So it actually represents 10 units. So that's the reason we multiplied this in by 10, and we multiplied this in by 100, which means that we also have to multiply our speed by 10. So if I put this at negative 200, I might have to divide by 10. We're going to find out this is really wrong right now, probably. So let's see if this actually works, though. So we go to the scene. Yep, that's way too high. Let's try dividing it by 10. So 2, negative 2. Hit play. Go to our scene. Eureka! See, that's how it's supposed to look. So it looks like nothing's moving, right? Except for it is. You'll see that the texture is actually, the whole thing's moving.
Yes.
But we definitely have it right. So that was our problem. We had an off by 10 problem because we were using an object that is inherently larger than 1 meter at its default state, which is, the kind of things that you have to worry about. And
yes.
And no data is going to be perfect. Don't think that just because you're not using just because you have an artist doesn't mean that you're not going to have data inconsistencies. As a matter of fact, I guarantee you will have more because you have an artist. So, and this is not dissing artists. I love artists. It's just people will set up things different ways, and you'll have to you will learn very quickly to not make the assumptions that you thought you could make on your game. So we now have the texture scrolling at a rate appropriate, so we can now actually up this. I'm going to put it back up to, I'm going to do 5, and we're going to make the ship go 50 again, so it goes freaking fast. I'm going to hit play. So there we go. It looks very smooth. It's doing what we want. We can still shoot. So you can see that the bullets we're shooting are kind of chopping a little bit. That's partly because of the ridiculous speed at which we are traveling at right now. We are literally moving the player in chunks of 50 units at a time. So when you really get down to it, well, not 50 units at a time, sorry. We're doing it in chunks of basically almost 1 unit per frame if we're going for 50 frames per second, which is really fast. That's a lot of distance. So we might want to actually turn that down a little bit. One of the nice things is we can actually cheat now. So say we want to turn down the speed to something like 20, and like we had before, actually, naturally. Let's go back to our plane and set the speed to the appropriate 2 here, and hit play. So we have this thing, and now it looks like we're moving slower, but at least when we shoot, it should be a little bit less. Yeah, you'll see a lot less of that chunk. It's still a little noticeable at certain points, but for the most part, you're not going to really care about that. I wonder if interpolation would actually make that look a little smoother. Let's just try that real quick out of curiosity. So I want to go to our bullet and turn on interpolate. Does this make it any better? Oh, that makes it a lot better. Oh, never mind. That might be all we need. Actually, let's go back up to 50. Now that that's working, woo. Alright, so ship, gameplay plane, go back to 50. Yeah, that got rid of a lot of the chunkiness real quick.
Good deal.
We are getting a couple of things that look like they're spawning behind the ship. I think that has something to do with the spawn position and interpolation. I don't know. It's probably based on just the speed. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and be double safe. We're going to put it back down to 20. And we're going to do something different this time. Instead of doing 2, we're actually going to double it. So we're going to do 4. So what will happen now is it'll look like we're going faster, but we're actually not moving as fast as we were before. But the ground texture is moving faster. So you can see now that it looks like it's scrolling, but it's actually scrolling on top of the other stuff here. You can see all that junk that we're just throwing into space there. So now that we have this, we actually don't even need to make this as ridiculously long or large, though I think I'm just going to keep it because it kind of has a good horizon feel to it right now. So yeah, let's start with that. I'm going to, for our first level here, I'm going to not do trench run style. I think we're going to do more of a open outdoor area for the first time here. So
Space Harrier style?
Space Harrier style, yeah. Except without the running on the ground coolness.
Yeah.
So, actually, if you're in modeling mode at any point, rings to fly through or arches would be probably a good thing to work on.
Okay.
If you don't want to work on that, though, that's fine. I'll just do some stuff with blocks, so to start off with. So, we need to bring in some things to fly into. So let's create a spawner system. So what we're going to do is, first I'm going to go ahead and take this time to reorganize our stuff into folders. Prefabs. Actually, we don't want the jet thing in the prefabs. That should go into models.
Yeah.
Create folder, models.
It's a model.
It's only a model.
It is a silly place.
And prefabs, models, materials, scripts. That's always important. So, and I guess one more for textures. No, I want it out of that folder. There. All right. Looks pretty good. So, let's start a new script. I didn't already create a new script somewhere that is in the wrong place right now. Let's create a new script called, let's call this wall spawner. We're going to try and write this in kind of a generic way. We may rename it if it becomes generic enough to be used in different cases. We're just going to start under the assumption that it spawns balls. So this thing's going to take, let's do a game object array called walls, and we want this to be public so that you can put stuff in it. Public game object array walls, and then let's do public float actually, let's do public vector2 position range. Yeah, that'll be good enough for now. Public vector2 position range, and then public float min spawn time, public float max spawn time. Alright, so we don't need the start for this one. in the update loop. Actually, maybe we don't even need the update for this one. Let's go back. Void start. So we want this to happen between the min spawn time and max spawn time. We've set something up like this before. I forget in what episode, but it's actually really super simple to do this. So all we need to do is we can just run invoke. Now we could do invoke repeating, but invoke repeating, if you do this, it automatically invokes with the time and the repeat rate, and those things are now set. If we just do a single invoke, and then within the invoke call another invoke, we can now adjust these values, and they won't adjust instantaneously, but they will adjust for the next time grouping. So I want to do it that way. So we're going to do invoke. We're going to invoke spawn wall, and we're going to do it after. So we want random.range min spawn time, max spawn time. And that will return a value between the min spawn time and max spawn time for us automatically. I'm going to go ahead and set these to meaningful default values equals 1.0f equals 1.0f, and I'm going to do again on here equals vector 32.1, which is just it's a vector that's 1 in both directions.
What do you need these files in? FBX?
Yeah, FBX is the preferred format.
Okay.
So we don't need the update now because we're going to be using this spawn wall thing. Void spawn wall. Now on this one, the first thing I'm going to do is put this back into it, because this basically does what I was saying. So now at the end of spawn wall, it will invoke spawn wall again with a new random time. And if you had readjusted the min and max spawn times, and actually I'm going to make the defaults like that, you will see them in the next spawn. So so say it takes 10 seconds maximum to spawn a wall. You wait 10 seconds, it spawns the wall. If during that 10 seconds you would set it to 5, the next wall will spawn in 5. If you wait for the wall to spawn and then you set it to 5, it'll be the wall after next. But it's better than not being able to change it at all at runtime. So this still allows you to tweak with. So let's go ahead and...
You should have a crappy arch thing now.
Oh, excellent. Crappy arch. Sparrow. I forgot I probably need this open now that we communicate using this. So, crappy arch thing.
Yeah, it's a crappy arch thing.
Awesome, we have arches. This will be perfect.
They're crappy.
Whatever. Come on. Come on, Unity. All right. We're going to put this in our models folder. And I'm going to go ahead and do what we did before. So we're going to make sure to not import the normals. We're going to calculate those. We're going to not import materials.
Correct. Though there may be a model that you could import materials for. And actually what's really cool is if you get used to using UV stuff with Blender and things like that, you can keep your draw calls down really low by sharing materials with objects.
Yes, yeah.
But that's, neither here nor there right now. So. It's just a little simple arch.
Ooh, I like how it has the smooth normals on the side. Isn't that interesting? See, right here you can see that this is a very smooth gradient, even though there's actually, you can count the polygons there.
Yes.
It's just one boom. But it looks like it's a smooth edge. And that's because when the normals were calculated on here, this was I'm assuming this was based off of some sort of cylinder or something?
No.
Initially? Oh, really?
No cubes.
It was based off of cubes.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you end up with the smooth
I don't know.
mapping then? Cool. Whatever.
Did you turn off the rig and the animation and everything?
I
like
did.
that?
We turned off the animation type to none.
And also make sure
animations,
that the
we
scale's
closed
not
that.
0.1 like it is currently.
Oh, yeah. 1.0f.
You actually might want it even bigger than that.
We'll find out. Let's actually spawn ones in the scene. So let's first let's create a prefab
for the crappy
for
arch.
this, and we're going to call it Arch.
Oh, it's not going to be called Krabby Arch?
No, it doesn't have to be because it's not crappy.
I think if something takes me like 2 minutes to make, then...
Okay, fair enough. It's probably crappy. Whatever, it worked.
Yeah.
There's an arch.
It's an arch thing.
So let's drag one of these arches into the scene.
It's going to be
looks really big, but yeah,
funky,
it's positioned very strangely right now. Let's just go 0, 0.
And that's just something you have
0.
to deal with when you're dealing with like Blender or any 3D modeling program. Sometimes their axes are different.
Axi.
Oh wow, that actually
Yeah, that was pretty perfect.
pretty appropriate.
Actually.
Except it's rotated wrong, but
Yep. All right, so rotation we can fix pretty easily. We can just create a.
And you want some kind of cylinder
actually,
as well?
rotation doesn't even matter in this particular case. Let's just rotate it. Let's
A
just
ring of some sort, maybe?
Yeah, go ahead and do a ring. So, let's put one of these actually on the ground and see if I can actually fly through it. I have a feeling that it's going to actually be more difficult than it looks right now. We currently don't move the camera around at all when the game's playing too, so we may want to change that at some point.
Yes.
To make it actually move around. That was actually something else that History Maker has already done in hers. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm not sure if we're going to touch that tonight or not. So let's just put this on the ground, like I was saying 30 minutes ago. So where is the ground exactly? It's at -5. So this should be about.
Yeah, it's not
-5.
exactly centered, but whatever.
Let's make it a little bit higher, -5.25. Oops, no, -4. There we go. That's perfect. And let's move that into the scene by about 50. Let's see if we can fly through it. Okay, it looks like we flew through it. Yeah, we definitely need the camera to follow the ship a little bit more than it currently does. So, but that'll work. So, let's create our spawner for the arches. And I'm already going to change the name of this. I'm already just going to call this a random spawner. And we're going to rename it to, or we're going to open it and rename it to random spawner. And we're going to actually make this thing do something. So now we have our walls. We want to spawn our walls. So actually, let's not call this walls. Let's call this object. No. Spawn object. We can't say the word object because that's a token in C#. So spawn object. So we're going to randomly pick a spawn object, which is very simple. We're just going to do spawn object, and then if we were to put 0, this gives us the first one in our spawn object list. 1 gives us the second one. 2 gives us the third one. If we want to get a random one, it's just random.range, and this takes 2 values: int min, which is 0, because we want to pick from the earliest one on the list, and int max will be the spawn object dot length. And since random.range with integers is already inclusive exclusive, this is set up exactly right the way that we want it right now. This will not go outside of the range of our list. Well, not our list, but our array here. So this is what we actually want as the spawn object. This is already giving us an error because this doesn't do anything. We're going to now actually do something with it. So we're going to instantiate spawn object with all that junk. And we're going to want to actually spawn it into a position. So let's have it be based on the spawner. Yeah, let's have it be based on the spawner position. So we're going to use transform.position plus position range. Alright. Maybe that's not the best way to set that up. Okay, let's just leave this at this for right now. Let's just split it up explicitly. Float x range equals 1.0 f y range equals 1.0f. So x range. So this, we're basically going to pick a random position within these x, y parameters. I'm going to look at what we have in random real quick to see how this is. So we've got random inside unit circle, inside unit sphere, on unit sphere. Yeah, we don't want it to be spherical in this case, so I'm just going to actually do two random.range calls. So we're going to do float x position, x offset rather, equals random.range 0.0f and x range. And we will do the same thing with our y offset, except for we do y range. And so now we will spawn it at transform.position plus new vector 3 x range y range 0.0f. So what this does is it takes the position of the spawner object, it adds the x range and y range, and actually I did this wrong. We don't want it to be 0 as the load range. We want it to actually be negative x range, negative y range. You'll see why in a second here. So basically this will spawn some distance within the x range and y range, either to the left or right, or to up or above or below the object. If you want to do something where the x range positive and x range negative are separate, you'll need to have extra variables for that. We're not going to handle that in this case. You can do that yourself very easily. So finally, the third parameter here is the rotation, which we're just going to use the original object's rotation. So it's going to be spawn object so we need to actually, so int game spawn object index equals, and we're going to put this random.range here because we want this to be the same in all the cases that we are referencing it. Otherwise we'll get very strange results if we have a bunch of eclectic items in there. So we want this to be spawn object index, and we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to use spawn object index dot transform dot rotation. And that should be it. So let's give this a shot. We're going to create a new empty game object. Create empty. We're going to call this thing object. We're going to call this arch spawner. We're going to set its position to something meaningful. So this plane, first of all, why is this offset by like nothing for no reason?
Magic.
Yeah. So let's get rid of that offset. Let's go to arch spawner. Let's put it in the gameplay plane. And so the arch spawner's in here. I'm going to set it to the same position relatively as the plane, so -5. And so this thing's actually at -4, right? This thing's, oh, what did I do? Oh no, what did I do? Somehow I moved that a mile by accident. So this one's at -4. So let's go ahead and make the arch spawner at -4. We're going to put the random spawner on here. We're going to place it at -4. And let's put it on the Z. Let's go 100 into the scene. We'll probably still see it pop in at that range, but let's give it a shot. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the arch that's in here. Although I'm going to apply it to the prefab first, and then I'm going to delete the arch. And we're going to go to our arch spawner. We're going to add the arch to the arch spawner. And we're going to set the Y range to 0, so it will always spawn on the ground, hopefully. And the X range, how wide is this thing? 10? Let's make it 10. That may be too much, but we'll give it a shot. Actually, let's make it 5, because we're already talking about horizontal range. It'll be double whatever we set here anyway. So X range 5, Y range, and let's just keep the minimum and maximum spawn times right now. Let's see if this works. So we hit play. And so hopefully within 10 seconds, but no sooner than 1 second, we should see a arch spawn into the scene. And there it goes. And we fly through it. That's freaking awesome.
What if we hit it?
Right now, a whole lot of nothing happens if we hit it. So that spawned another one that kind of looks suspiciously in the same place. Maybe it's not suspicious. At least the time seems kind of random. That looks like it's always spawning with the same positional information. Let's find out. Yeah, their X position is 5 in all these cases, so that makes me think that we did something wrong. And we did. I'm using X range and Y range when we should be using X offset and Y offset.
I would do it.
So what we were always getting was the maximum. So if we hit play now it should actually act random. So there we go. That was in a different position. That's promising. There we go. It's spawning more in. Perfect. All right. So there we go. There we have a very basic arch spawning system. Now, where 5 was, I'm actually going to go ahead and make this wider. We're going to make it go to 8. Let's go 8. And let's set the minimum spawn time to 5 seconds and the max spawn time to 10 seconds. And let's also make it so this thing's a little bit further away. Yeah, let's make it 200, I guess. See how that looks on the horizon. So one of the advantages, one of the interesting things is since we're doing this procedurally and since things have to spawn in so far away for them for us to hide the pop-in effectively, this is a good opportunity for you as a designer to design the very first portion of your level. Most random games actually have some design work in the very, very, very first sequence, just because you have to spool in the stuff from further away anyway, so most of the time you have to have something to start with, and maybe you'll have like a tutorial in the first place. So you could make a case for just placing the objects as you will. And the thing is, as you'll see, if we pause this thing and go in here, since we are physically moving through the scene, you can see that these arches are actually physically there. You can just place objects in this scene and eventually we will pass by them. It's not like we are faking the movement. The forward movement is actually happening. Problems with forward movement happening is eventually it's possible for us to lose precision because of floating point. So at some point you'd probably want to wrap yourself around the world. A good way to do that is to create kind of a level boundary where because then you can justify despawning the objects. Yeah. Also, we should probably have one of our classic scripts we're going to create once again because it's a one-liner and it's super easy. Destroy on invisible. This will allow us to actually cull the arches that we've passed. So all this thing is a basically one-liner. We're just going to do void on became invisible. This is a built-in function that is called in Unity when an object is no longer rendered by any camera. And so on became invisible is called. We just do destroy game object. We've written this one about 30 times, and we're going to keep writing it because it's easy. So destroy on invisible, we'll throw this on our arch, not on the arch spawner itself. That would be, well, it wouldn't do anything. Well, I'm not even sure. It doesn't have a renderer, so who knows what it would do. But now when we pass the arches, you'll see them appear on the list here, and then they should disappear from the list as well. So we're going to fly through our arches. And you see it pass through the screen. And it didn't disappear. Why didn't it disappear?
Ready for this?
Why did the arch not disappear? What am I ready for?
It's not disappearing?
Yeah. So these have the script that I think they do. They have destroy on invisible. Maybe I misspelled something.
It's a ring.
Alright, so let's try... Let's go into our destroy on invisible. On became invisible. Let's double check that I've spelled that right. On became invisible. That looks like I spelled it right. Though, nope.
Something was different.
It thinks it's different, but I don't think it actually is different. Debug.log. We are invisible. Let's just make sure this is even getting in here. Hit play. Go to the console.
After that, you should
Get your ring.
yeah, the
Get your
import.
ring.
Import it on in.
So we're gonna pass by the arch spawner or the arch, and it still didn't delete itself. And we didn't get any output from that. Alright, I'm gonna try something. I'm going to physically move the arches. Wait, where's the newest arch? Let's pause it. Pause it. I want the latest arch, which is one of these. There it is. Alright, and we're just going to... I'm going to go ahead and just grab this thing and tear it off of the screen and hit unpause.
It didn't do anything.
Huh. Weird. Oh, wait. Maybe that only works if the object itself moves off the screen rather than the screen moving off the object. That doesn't really make sense, though.
No, it doesn't, but that might be the case.
Let's try that out of just for fun. I'm going to temporarily make the gameplay plane not move forward. And we're going to go to our arch and we're going to add move forward to it. That's actually not going to work very well because I just realized this forward is very strange. It's going to be moving to the left. It'll be good enough for our test. So hit play, and so it still looks like we're moving, but we're actually not moving anymore. There's our arches. Yeah, you can see that we're not getting any closer to the arch. Okay, we need that to move a little bit faster. There we go. Huh.
I didn't see any
Still
debug logs.
Still didn't delete.
Something must be going wrong.
That's strange.
A little bit.
On became invisible. I copied and pasted it and everything. Let's look at the C# just to make sure that I'm not doing something strange. Void on became invisible. That looks really similar. Let's go to the arch again, make it really fast. It's already really fast. Perfect. I wonder why that's not working.
I have no idea.
It's always worked before. Oh. I got it. I figured it out. I'm stupid.
What happened?
So, okay. I'm not stupid. It's actually a tricky little thing. So, let's first undo these real quick changes. Let's make sure that move forward is working. So what's happening is on the arch, I've set destroy on invisible. The arch doesn't actually have a renderer directly attached to it. And so it never gets an on invisible call because on invisible calls only happen when a renderer is no longer there. The renderers are actually on the cube here. It has this mesh renderer on it. And so we need to actually attach the destroy on invisible to that, and we need to make it actually destroy
its parent
object as well. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to make destroy on invisible a little bit different. We're just going to make it slightly more robust. Public game object destroy object. Actually, let's make it an array so we can make it really destroy objects. Will attempt to destroy self, and actually let's just make that as an option. That way we don't. That way it's explicit. One of the uses of options is to let people know what's available as a feature sometimes. So we can just make a public bool destroy destroy self equals, let's default that to true. And let's actually have that be on the top. And then additionally, it'll destroy the objects in this list. So if destroy self, then we destroy the game object. And then for each game object obj in destroy objects destroy obj. So now if we go to our arch, we can now, instead of destroying self, well, we need to remove the component from here because this needs to be attached to something with a renderer. So this has a renderer. We're going to attach it here. So destroy on invisible. And then on here, we're not going to destroy ourselves, and we're going to instead destroy the arch. And hit apply on here. Or we don't need to hit apply. So we're done. So now if we hit play, this should properly clean up our arches, finally.
That's the theory.
That is the theory. We're not cleaning up our bullets in any way, shape, or form yet. So we see arch there, we see arch there, we see arch there, and it goes off the screen. And it went away! Yay! There's another arch there, but the first one went away. Hooray! Okay.
Now you can see that ring.
So now we can see that ring. So put up Sparrow. It's a ring thing. Throw that into the desktop. And throw its ring thing into our models directory. And now we're going to create a prefab. We can call this ring, because I'm way lamer than the naming conventions given to me.
Where I say sort of crappy thing,
yep.
And it's a ring. And
so it's a ring thing. Let's put this back to one. Why is that defaulting to
I have no idea.
That's so stupid. Is it just because people usually model in centimeters?
It might be an FBX thing, because I've not seen that happen before.
Maybe.
Well,
we don't need the materials. Nope. And we don't need the rig. And we don't need the animations.
Those animations can actually mess you up quite a bit if you're working with 3D stuff and you don't expect it to have animation.
I haven't actually had too much trouble myself, but I imagine that there are probably edge cases that are horrifying. So let's set up a ring.
Is it calculating the
oh yeah, it is. Thank you.
Because it'll look really funky.
No, it's calculating.
Oh, it should. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
It still kind of looks funky though. Especially that.
No, maybe
that
it's
one looks inverted for some reason.
Wrong normal.
Yeah. Oh well.
That can happen.
Well, we have a ring anyway. So let's go ahead and create a ring spawner now. So we only have one spawn script, but now we can spawn whatever we want, and we can actually spawn more than one type of thing, which we'll do on the next
Normals
episode.
actually look pretty good on this one, as far as I can tell. So I don't know what's going on.
Well, the normals aren't. Normals are just the text. Okay, so I found out that there's actually a distinct difference between the normals reported and the actual normals that come in here. Normals, as far as polygon siding is concerned, all that matters is winding. So the normals that you set actually only apply for the UV normal stuff. It's actually not necessarily the polygon winding order. Yeah, that's a side note. Sorry, folks. So here we go. So we need a. Did we create an empty game object? No, we didn't. So game object create empty. We're going to create a. So I'm going to call it a ring spawner, and we can use the script that we already have. I'm going to just place it in this similar position to the arch spawner. I'm just going to quickly copy component on here. Go to ring spawner, paste component values. Although this one we're going to actually default to 0, so it's actually in the middle of the screen. And we're going to give it a random spawner script. We're going to give it a ring. We're going to set the min spawn time. This one will be more common. We'll set the min spawn time to 2 seconds and the max spawn time to 5 seconds. Let's do 2.5. Why not? And for some reason, I just wasn't comfortable with the 2 there. And then the range. So the range here, in this one we probably wouldn't mind a circular range system, but we're just going to keep using the one we have here. So we said 8 was pretty okay for this left and right. So let's make it 8 here, and let's make the Y range 6. Let's see how that works. And
don't forget the destroy script.
Oh yeah, so we need to go to our ring, and we're going to, for some reason, because we created the prefab before we had changed the things, we got this animation component. We don't need that. Anything else we don't need? Why are the scaling so stupid? Whatever. I don't care. So this is the one with the renderer, so we're going to throw our destroy on invisible on here. And then we're going to not destroy self, although I don't think it would hurt it to destroy itself in this case. And we're going to destroy the ring. So now if we hit play, we should have rings and arches to fly through. Oh, our ring.
Oh, it's sideways.
Yeah, let's fix that. Ring 90. Let's try that one more time. Oh, and now it's 90.0001. Thanks, Unity. So we have a ring, yay. Oh, and there's a ring that kind of spawned through the floor. So our vertical range is too high.
Those are the right size, right?
Yeah, those look pretty good.
Kind of weird looking, but that's what you get when you start with a cube.
Yeah. Ah!
So there we go. You got some kind of obstacles.
Yep, some kind of obstacles. Not terribly exciting, but it's good for an episode. Not as much. I don't feel like we made as much progress on this episode as we did on the last one. But yeah, next one we'll do some collision. We'll actually turn this into a game. Maybe some cool effects when you go through a scoring system or something. And then I want to go get some enemies in here because we don't have any enemies. And I want to get for the next episode. I'd also like to, well, not for the next episode, but for this series, I'd like to do a boss fight too. I think that we haven't done a boss fight in any games yet, and I think it'd be fun to make a boss, something with a little bit more behavior than what we're used to. So I'm just going to quickly. We're just going to make the ring spawner be at a slightly higher position, like 2, and we're going to make it so that the Y range is. Let's make it. Actually, let's just start with that and see how that looks. So this could potentially put rings pretty high up, but hopefully they won't put them through the ground anymore. And actually, let's just test it really quickly. Let's set this to 0.5 and 0.5.
Well, that's going to be spawning rings like mad.
And consistently. As a matter of fact, actually, that'll be a fun exercise for next episode. I think I'm going to show how to use Perlin noise to make the rings spawn in similar positions so that you can create like a ring chain that moves around. So we have a couple that clip through the ground still. The high ones are too high without the camera moving, but they might be okay with the camera movement. Let's change the range. It's just a little too high range. Let's do 4. Let's do 5.
All right.
And let's make it spawn like freaking mad. Because we can. We have computers.
Oh my goodness.
Fun things about testing is just setting numbers and seeing what happens. So we got a slight clip through the ground there. That doesn't really bother me enough to... I'd say that's probably a pretty meaningful
that's
range. We'll do 4. Although I'm not testing it. I'm just going to check it in with 4.
Okay, good call.
All right, so 2.5, 5, so this feels a little bit more like a game still, and yeah, cool.
There we are. We got some stuff.
So we got a basic spawner system and some basic rings, and we have a system so that we will never run out of runway anymore. So
good deal.
Thanks for joining us tonight. If you wish to contact me, you can email me at pushypixels@pushypixels.com. If you wish to contact me on Twitter instead of email, you can tweet me at Drakfire.
And if you want to send me an email telling me, hey, you made some rings. Kind of silly little arch. Oh no. Silly little arch thing. You can. You can send me an email at philip@protosoftworks.com. Or you could also follow me on Twitter. That's at magmalemur. And you should buy Proton Pulse. Buy it. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Buy it.
And guess what? You should also buy Automation. And you should definitely not hesitate on that. And put some high scores on the list. Just buy it and get some high scores because high score competition is fun. Try and beat Phil. He's still
I'm still
he's
number
still
one.
master of his game, which... We've decided collectively that if we are the top scorer of our individual projects, that means that our projects were ultimately unsuccessful.
Yeah, that is probably true. That is probably true.
So get a high score, prove that we're successful.
Oh yeah, and you can use my little ship if you want to.
Oh yeah,
That
yeah.
doesn't
Use the ship, use the assets. If you have any projects that you want to work on, just feel free to use anything that we have on the show. Consider it public domain at this point. Thank you for joining us, and you guys have a great week.
Have a fantastic night.